The topic this morning is revising state, public, and community education, as well as religious education, and our guest is Dr. Hardy from Tennessee State University. And of course, Dr. Hardy, let me welcome you back to this second segment of the show for today and to sort of revisit some of the things that we talked about during that first segment by simply reminding our audience that you're going to talk to us about how we might be able to improve in a real sense, whether we're dealing with state education or public education, community education, the education and delivery system of education in this country.
Certainly. First of all, I think we should all remember that every state in the United States is responsible for public education. And during the days of preparing for the 1954 Supreme Court decision, the lawyers and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund thought that it would be quite interesting to test African-American young people as well as Caucasian young people or European young people in America. What was it that they saw as problems in race?
Good.
And so I brought with me my two doll babies. And Dr. Kenneth Clark and his wife Mamie Clark had developed, they were two psychologists at that time, in the 1930s and the 1940s, had been working on what we now will call the doll test. And a number of young people were tested by Dr. Clark, and the question was asked when the young people came in, which doll looks like you? Well, many of the young people, of course, would say that this is the doll that looks like me. Which doll has power? They would point to the white doll. Which doll is beautiful? They would point to the white doll. Which doll is the ugly doll? This is the... And if you saw the movie, that Thurgood Marshall was one of the featured characters in that, and Sidney Poitier played the part. And it was quite interesting that then when that material was presented to the United States Supreme Court at that time, that was the Warren Court. First of all, it was a conservative court. Earl Warren had come from the state of California, a conservative state at that time, and no one expected a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court to desegregate the school systems. But when the schools were desegregated, because it showed in the Brown case that young African-American kids were obviously psychologically harmed by saying that they wanted to be white as opposed to being black, that which was beautiful. They didn't see black as beautiful. That's where I came in as a young person, where those days of being black as beautiful.
Separation has an impression upon the mind that cannot be eradicated.
Exactly, exactly. A psychological problem. In fact, there are many of us who still have that psychological scar. W.E.B. Du Bois said that we have something called double consciousness, we as African-Americans, that we have a way of looking at the African-American experience in America, and we have also an understanding of being a part of the white experience in America. So we have double consciousness, and we really do. And I'm not saying that that's wrong.
Good or right or wrong.
That's right. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's a sociological fact.
As a natural fact.
That's a natural fact. Only because of the fact of the condition that we're in.
Very good.
So the schools were integrated, at least according to law. But there were a number of schools in the country that were not going to be integrated because there was so much resistance. And then in 1955, there became another case called Brown 2. And that gave the individuals, the resistors in all across America, time to figure out how to integrate the schools. Here's where religion comes in.
Very good.
Very much what I call hypocrisy in America. And we must now begin to really put our grips around the hypocrisy.
Okay.
Individuals saying, we are Christians, but they created Christian schools, which is a code word for white schools. And Nashville, Tennessee was one of the places that developed a number of Christian schools so that white people could go to those schools where black people were going to go to the public schools. So now that's what you have.
The whole concept of the Christian school was
white only.
Segregated.
Yes. Now they will say, oh yes, we will have, we will accept black students if they wish to come here and if they can pay the tuition. And a number of test cases, and I was a part of those test cases where we, and Atlanta, Georgia was one of the places where a hotbed in the 1960s, where individuals just resisted that type of the integrated system. And so the white schools were set up, and they're still in existence today. You know, we know them in Nashville. We can drive around and see the white Christian academies, and they were created for that purpose.
Primarily in the 1960s for that, yes.
Now, however, with busing having been a part of this experience, white students were in certain places, black students were in certain places, and we bused white students and black students to schools where they could be together, just like we have the dolls here. But over a period of time, the schools have resegregated. Why? Because of the housing patterns in America. So this is a part of the African-American experience, a part of the European-American experience. So we know what it is in America. Race is a tough problem to solve. Now we have the schools, after over 54 years, have now resegregated again. What's the problem? We have in the school systems every year, when we have statistics that come out from across the country, white students are 10 percentage points ahead of their black counterparts, like 10 points in reading, 10 points in math, and so on. Well, why? We've all been in this country together for over 200 years. So why is it that? And then we've had over 50 years of so-called integrated education.
Very good.
And yet our students are still not on parity. We're not equal. Now, we had the separate but equal situation, but we never got we had the separate part, but we never got the equal part. Now, here we are looking at the year 2000 and beyond, and this is the 21st century. Why not we revisit
it's about time.
This situation and see what is happening? One of the things that we can look at, the early dropout rates, they are tremendous. Horrendous even. Early pregnancies on the part of the individuals who are trapped in the inner cities. Not only do we have black people who are trapped in inner cities and a few whites who are trapped in inner cities, but now Hispanics are also trapped in inner cities. So this morning, according to the papers, in Omaha, Nebraska, there has been an initiative that has been passed by the state legislature in Nebraska that Omaha will now have 3 different systems, and we'll talk more about that when we get a chance to look at them. What is this revised system?
And how that, and of course, we'll take this commercial break and we'll be back after a minute. But in a real sense, this will help determine how you see the outcomes, the possibilities of what we're talking about here.
Exactly right.
And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very short commercial break. We're talking to Dr. William Hardy.